Hello, I'm Darielle Snipes with the Cleveland Metropolitan School District with another edition of Talk to the CEO. Well, this is a day that students and educators have waited for. Superintendent and CEO Eric Gordon has made the decision to move the district into hybrid. So what does that mean? Well, here to talk about that is Mr. Gordon himself. Hi, Eric. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, good. Well, so you just decided that the school district's going to be going into hybrid. Why did you make that decision?
Well, you know, I've continued through this entire process to look at all of the data available, and that includes the Ohio Public Health Advisory System data. We have seen that the county has now had only 2 or 3 indicators over several weeks, down from 6 of the 7 indicators back in December. The number of cases per 100,000 has decreased from over 900 per week several weeks ago to only about 230 now, and we're about to hit that 100 mark where we'll turn orange. And from the beginning, the district has said when we're red moving toward orange, that would be an indicator. The city data is also improving. We're seeing fewer and fewer cases in the city. Our data from families says that a little more than half of families are ready to be back. That means a number still want to stay in remote, and we'll serve them, but more than half want to be back, and almost 2/3 of students want to be back. And then also vaccinations are going well. A large number of staff vaccinated, and we have the Moderna vaccine, which fortunately provides high immunity already in the first dose after just 14 days. And so having all of our staff vaccinated gives us extra confidence. Finally, conversations with the board and public. And the board has said to me from the beginning, we don't want to hop in and out, so be steady and cautious, but when we can move and have a high likelihood of staying in hybrid, that's when we should make that move. All of that together is telling us it's time to begin the move.
Well, I know a lot of students will be excited about that, but what does that mean? What does hybrid mean to the students? Will they be going back 5 days a week, or just part of the time? Will all the students be going back? What is the district's plan?
So what we're going to do is to start phasing this in. We're going to start actually on February 22nd with spring athletics. Athletics are back. We're really excited about it. We have all of the safety requirements in place. Students will wear masks when they're appropriate. They will social distance. There are hygiene and sanitation protocols. So that'll actually kick off our return. We'll begin to bring some of our highest need students back. This will be a smaller number, but those students that really need us most to be back in person. We're going to phase in then a larger number of groups. We're going to have our preschool through 2nd grade students, more students with disabilities, English language learners, high school seniors and freshmen who are struggling a little bit, career tech students. That phase-in will be a couple of weeks where we do some orientation and some getting used to this new strategy. Over the month of March, you'll see a gradual building of getting all of our kids back into school who choose to come. When will they come? Most students will be here 2 days a week and still have remote the other 3 days. So you may be in the A group on Monday and Tuesday, then have asynchronous Wednesday, Thursday, Friday remote. Or if you're in the B group, it's the opposite. You're home for AB for Monday, Tuesday. You still have asynchronous Wednesday. You're in school for Thursday, Friday. That allows us to do all of the spacing and social distancing and things that are required to maintain a safe environment.
And is that through the entire district? I know that the studies say that younger students should be in 5 days a week, or are you just going to do that for the younger students as well, where it's hybrid?
So right now, 2 days a week is our guarantee for all students at all grade levels. We do hope to be able to bring some of our students back for 4 days a week. That might be our preschool students. That might also be students with higher need disabilities that could use more time. Maybe even some seniors that are off track that really need that time. But we're going to start by getting everybody acclimated to a 2-day cycle. This is all not only a safety issue, but it's also a issue of the logistics. What can buildings hold safely? How do you space people out? How do you transport people? How do you schedule when half of our students are actually likely to stay in remote and the others want to be in school? So 2 days a week to begin, and then we'll expand where we can under the health and safety conditions.
So I know the district has prepared for this day for many months. So what will students see once they enter their school buildings?
Well, it starts even before you get to the school building. So when you get on your bus, you will need to be wearing your mask. A bus driver will be offering you hand sanitizer. Just as a reminder, keep those hands clean. You'll be seated 1 student per seat in a staggered seating. The seats actually have tape to show where you can't sit. Siblings can sit with you, but others cannot. Once you get to school, there will be entry protocols, so you'll have to go through a touchless thermometer screen, either your forehead or your wrist, against an electronic machine to check your temperature. Once you're in your classroom, spaced out, 6 feet apart, no sharing of supplies. Most of your things will be done in the same classroom. You won't, teachers will do a lot more changing, students will do a lot less changing. Dining will likely be in classrooms for the most part, not always. Some of our spaces are big enough to distance. Very careful bathroom breaks so that we can move kids in and out with plenty of social distancing and spacing. Floors that are marked to tell you how to move so that you don't interact with people, when you shouldn't be. Sanitizer stations throughout the building. So it is going to be a little bit different. There's a great video actually of you walking us through it on the CMSD webpage that'll help people actually see what to experience before they arrive back. There's also a day in the life document where you can actually kind of take the journey of the day to understand what's going to happen when you're in our schools.
So parents and students will be well prepared when they go back. So what if someone doesn't want to return to the school buildings? They don't feel comfortable. Is that an option?
Certainly. So it's really important that while we're making the shift to hybrid to accommodate students and families that have been urgently waiting, we also know there's some students and families that are not ready. So we will be asking every family to make an option. To opt out of hybrid, let us know so that we don't schedule that bus, we don't schedule that classroom. And those families can remain in remote learning just as they have been, or they can choose our virtual option, which is an even more flexible, dynamic option, but with a little more parent engagement, a little less direct teacher contact time. The lessons are recorded, you can watch them at your own pace, that sort of thing. It is important to know, though, if we're going to reschedule literally half the district to be in school and half the district to be out, that may require some changes of schedules, and we're going to minimize that, but I want everyone to be prepared that whether you come back or not, to make this happen for all of our kids may impact some of our schedules, and we're going to coordinate that with Q4.
And will they also have different teachers, possibly?
It's possible, and that's why I want us to be cognizant of that, is that we're going to do our best to keep as much teacher continuity as possible. We're going to be using teacher teams, particularly for hybrid. So, you may have Mrs. Snipes for class right now. You may end up having Mrs. Snipes and Mr. Gordon being your team. You'll see less of Mrs. Snipes, she's still there, but you've got a team of teachers supporting you. It is even possible that because of the way staffing falls, who can come, who can't, with students and adults, that you may actually get a brand new teacher for Q4. But again, we're going to really work to minimize that and then work smoothly on those transitions.
And so what if a family decides that they want to do hybrid, they start hybrid, but then they decided that they want to go back remote, or vice versa? Is that an option? Can families change their decision?
Well, certainly it's an option. We're going to accommodate any family's needs, but that's part of the reason we have kind of an orientation and introduction phase in, is so that we can invite families to actually come see what to expect, and then phase in during the last few weeks of this quarter and test it and see, how did it go? How was school today? And if a student really comes home and says, this is not for me, by the time that Q4 starts, we want to have all of that sorted out so that we have a continuity of service, whether it's hybrid or remote, for the final quarter. So that's why when we begin this work, you're going to see a phase-in period for most students of practically 2 weeks of reorienting, getting used to this new way of learning.
And can a family switch the days? Like if they're in the A group or the B group, but one schedule works better for them, can they choose which days they go in? Again,
we're going to do everything we can to accommodate a family, and so if a day switch is important, we'll do everything we can to make that happen. There are some limits, so if we don't have a seat in a classroom because the classrooms are holding so many fewer students, we'd have to work with that family to say, is it more important to switch the day? Do you want to look at a different school? So we'd have to work through that. Likewise, transportation, if there's a seat on the bus, it's yours. If there's not a seat on the bus, that's a calculation you would have to make as a parent. But we're working really hard not to have rigid, hard, fast rules of who can go and at what time. We're still in a pandemic, and so we still have to try to have a little bit of grace, a little bit of flexibility to find a way to make this work for every family the best that it can.
And how can a family opt out?
So families can opt out by calling our enrollment office. That information is available on our website. They can also notify their school directly. I would really urge families, though, we don't want to just surge the entire line, so be a little patient. Just like when we rolled out those computers, we have 30,000 plus families that are going to be making options here. And you can even do that again at those open houses where you check things out, decide if this is for you, and then right on site let us know, yeah, I don't think this is for me, I'm going to stay home. So we'll be working through all of that. That information is coming on a mailer to every home that has your days. Are you an A group or B group? It has your start and end times for your school. It has your transportation if you're eligible, and the information for opt-in or opt-out.
So what will happen if a child or an administrator or educator gets sick at school?
So we have all of the same safety protocols that we've actually been practicing from the very beginning. We have a COVID-19 hotline. It's our school nurses who are responding. Every school has a care room, so if a student or adult starts to show any kind of symptoms that could be COVID related, we have a place to take them. If somebody is identified as sick, we have our own contract tracing protocols. We don't have to rely on the health department. We've been taught to do it ourselves so that we can find out quickly who should quarantine. Is that a classroom? Is that a whole school? I think it's unlikely based on what we've seen in other schools across the state, but we're prepared if it were to happen.
I know a lot of families are concerned about uniforms because they haven't purchased them this year. Will uniforms be required as well? Will masks be required?
Well, I was about to say yay, because uniforms will not be required, so I know students will like that. We still need our students to dress for school. So use the characteristics of the uniform, a school-appropriate shirt and pants. But we're not going to say to families, go spend money out there right now for uniforms for the few final weeks of school. Where it's maybe not a yay is, yes, you will be wearing a mask. All of us will be wearing a mask. That is critically important still. We hope students will be bringing their own clean cloth masks, but we'll have them available if students need them.
And I know, the district has done a great job with one-to-one when it comes to devices and computers. What's going to happen to those devices now that we're moving into hybrid?
So moving to hybrid doesn't mean you don't need your device. So they're going to stay in our homes. They're going to stay in our students' hands. If you are in pre-K through 8, you're still going to have remote days and an asynchronous day 2 to 3 days a week. And that's where you're going to still be interacting with teachers on your device, that 150 minutes of contact time that kids are having right now. If you're in high school, you're more likely to get all of your content on the devices, even when you're at school, and then you're going to have support personnel, English, math, science, social studies, other areas. And that's because high school students take such specialized courses that there's just not a great way to have, a in-person experience for part of a class on a specific subject with your teacher. So keeping kids connected through the remote platform and then supporting them at school is going to be a much better strategy for us to help our high school students.
And I know our graduating seniors are wondering what's going to happen with graduations this year. Will there be drive-throughs again, or will they be in person?
So graduation is dependent on health conditions, but health conditions are improving. So I've already directed our high schools to start preparing their in-person, socially distanced graduation ceremonies. They have to manage all the health rules, but they can do them. I've also asked all of our high schools to create a remote option. If there's a student or family that's just not going to come to in-person, that might be embedded in the ceremony on a screen that we can all watch, or it might be a separate ceremony for those students. But we are hopeful that the health conditions remain positive and that we'll be having in-person socially distanced graduations. We can always go back to the drive-by graduations. Nobody was going to like them until they happened.
Remote learning. So what do you have to say to the staff and the students as we approach a new phase of this pandemic and it's hybrid?
A couple of things. One is, we've in some ways settled into new routines, and we forget how anxious we were when we had to start this in remote, and so we're all anxious again. We will get through this. We have been resilient this entire way. We will be graceful and flexible. We will move through this, and we will get into a good rhythm with hybrid as we go through this. There's a bit of a pulling the Band-Aid off, right? And this is the same thing when we were starting remote, and I remember teachers and students and parents saying, I can't do this, this won't work. And it's working. So that's one. The other is, we're at the darkest before the dawn. So, there's so much hope. The vaccines are here, they're working, they're effective. Ohio privileged them for educators, and so, our educators are getting them. And that gives us the hope that this may finally be over, and yet it's not over. And so we have to go through another one of these transitions. And so there's a darkness before the dawn that I think we just have to all remind ourselves that we got this far together, we will finish this together, and it's going to be fine.
All right, I'm all done with my questions unless there's something else you'd like to add.
No, I think you've covered it really well. I'm excited to have kids back. I'm excited to be back myself. And just, again, we're going to get through this. We're going to make sure that kids who are ready to be in school have a good school experience. Those who are not, continue to have a great remote experience. And we're going to play ball.
That's right, we are. Well, thanks for your time.
Thank you.